The new channel. The new channel.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following show are those of the hosts, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. We are here not only to help you see the new you, but be the new you. I am Jennifer Nuya, live streaming from Cavite, Philippines, and you are watching Season 1, Episode 3 of Stories from the Fringe. We're happy to have Colin Thompson on our show today, whom I will introduce in just a moment. And if this is your first time to watch Stories from the Fringe, our platform aims to build a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable world for us. And we do this by pushing conversations about DEIV from the fringe to the front and center of the conversations, because we believe that people flourish in environments where they are not only seen and celebrated but also empowered. Now, let me know that you can hear me well by chiming in, by typing in the comment section in our chat box where you are joining us from today. Would love to hear from you. And please also use the chat box to let us know if there are any questions that you may have for our guests for today, and any comments, anything that you would like to share with us. We'll try our best to address those questions later on. All right. So we're happy to welcome Colin Thompson on our show today. Colin?
Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on your show, and I look very forward to sharing some of my experiences, thoughts, and comments about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace.
My pleasure. And thank you also for joining us from Shanghai, China. All right. So can you please share to our viewers a brief background about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you. So once again, Colin Thompson. I am located here in Shanghai, China. I came to China about 13 years ago, working for a major organization, at that time more into supply chain and IT. By being in China, well, actually, by having a background of growing up in the United States and being here in China in a very diverse environment, diverse in that you have people literally from all over the world here on a daily basis now in Shanghai. I really started noticing the way that people do treat people differently than they did back in the U.S., meaning that a lot of times, a lot of the discrimination issues we had back in the U.S. weren't really visible here in China. And I wanted to lean in and understand how we could sort of try to change the environments that we live and work in to be more equitable, to be more diverse and more inclusive. So I was in a position to start my own training and coaching and consulting firm about 3 to 4 years ago. And one of the areas I specialize in is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And I decided to focus on the workplace because if you think about where we spend most of our time with people who may be diverse, it's really in the workplace. Typically, our social circles are people who look like us and think like us. But in our work environments are people who are much more diverse. And if we're able to be inclusive and really have personal relationships with people who we work with, that will transfer to our social circles also. And we know that in our social circles, we're much more close and personal with people. If we can have those same personal relationships with people we work with, just think how powerful our work relationships would be. And of course, if we work more powerful at work, we perform better, organization does better, and our career should be also better. So I decided to really lean into and help organizations understand how they can create true, diverse, and inclusive environments and not fall into the pitfalls that a lot of organizations do. On a personal level, I also do diversity and cultural awareness coaching for individuals also. So I'm trying to hit it from both sides, one side being the organizational side and another side being the individual side.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you mentioned about the common pitfalls of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Can you please elaborate more on that?
Right. So, and it's interesting because a lot of people when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they really focus on only one part, and that's
Mm-hmm.
diversity. There was a
Mm-hmm.
case study that showed this major financial organization, they had a track record of having the most diverse workforce. Their workforce truly reflected the customer base, which is what organizations want. However, it was not an inclusive environment. And what that means is, yes, they had people of all different genders, ages, races. However, there were not opportunities for people to really feel included, which meant some people were involved in decision making and some people were not. So one of the biggest pitfalls that organizations run into is focusing only on diversity and not putting the same amount of focus on inclusion. Do your employees feel included in their work? Have you noticed that maybe people of a certain gender or race may have lunch together and one person doesn't join them, or people of that group don't join? So making
Mm-hmm.
sure that people feel that they're safe enough to voice up and share their opinion and be included. Now, this typically happens organizations when organizations go forward with a diversity and inclusion initiative for the wrong reasons. And maybe saying, well, if we're trying to be more diverse, how can we do that for a wrong reason? Well, think about 2020 or 2019 and 2020. A lot of organizations really start to focus on what? Being more diverse and inclusive and announcing that. It was a public relations opportunity to show how forward thinking our organization is. But the reason they were initiating these D&I programs was not really to reap the benefits of having a diverse and inclusive environment. It was really more to have the PR saying, we are now taking action. And because of that, because it wasn't founded for the right reasons, they're not really putting the thought process and actually money behind executing the program the proper way. So it's really more smoke and mirrors. And once that happens, your employees lose trust in the environment. They lose that trust because typically in those situations, you start having mandates that don't serve the employees. For example, they may say, we want to have more women in management, in our management teams. We want to have more women in our executive positions. Some people may perceive that as saying, okay, so now to become a manager, it's not based on merit. It's based on maybe merit, but also gender. If you're a woman, you may have a better opportunity now because now they're trying to advance women more. So how you implement these programs are very, very important. It's very important to make sure that people understand the why. Why are we doing this? And making sure people also understand that we still have an equitable environment where everybody still has the same chance for advancement.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for highlighting that, the difference between diversity and inclusion. So diversity, I've read someone said that diversity is like being invited to a dance. So you're all present there, but inclusion is you being invited to dance on the dance floor, right?
That's a great way to explain that. I say diversity is all the wonderful ways that people are different, whether that be the color of their skin, what they think about, their political views, their age, their gender, their sexual orientation, all the wonderful things that make us different. And I like what you said. Inclusion means that no matter what makes a difference, you can still be part of the team. You can still share your values, share your ideas. You can still contribute and feel that you're being valued.
Yes, yes, that's really important. And can we also add, how do we also differentiate equity?
So equity and having equality. I'll give you. I'll do what you did. Give a very simple story or example. So if you think about a family of four. You have the father, the mother, and the two kids. And let's say the kids are toddlers. Let's say 5 years old and maybe 12 years old. And the mother prepared a great dinner. Now, equality means that everybody is going to get the same portions of food. Okay, regardless of their age and their size. That's equality. Everybody gets the same. Equity says, well, not everybody has the same opportunity. Not everybody's situation is the same. Equity says, well, look, daddy and mommy are much bigger. They burn more energy. So daddy and mommy most likely should do what? Should get more of the food. So equality means everybody gets the same, but equity says, due to circumstances, we want to make sure that resources are being provided based on your situation, not just equal. Because we know in situations, things are not equal. So organizations must do more things to help people who are marginalized get more opportunity. So that's an easy way of looking at the difference between equity and equality.
Mhm. I like how you define it that way. If I understand it correctly, equity in the workplace means equality in opportunities. So opportunities are available for everyone, regardless of your age, your status, and your racial identity or gender identity, but not equality in outcomes. Because you mentioned earlier that sometimes some companies, they push for more diversity, let's push for more women leaders, when in fact it's just ticking the boxes. So
Correct.
for this position, you are compelling your talent acquisition or your recruiters to give you or present to you 50% gender balance of the candidates. But we have to also make sure that we are taking into account meritocracy,
Right,
qualifications,
right,
educational
right,
background, right?
right.
Not just
But
because we want more women in the workplace or
right,
leaders in the workplace.
absolutely. You mentioned meritocracy, and you have to dig deeper because sometimes when things are just based on merit, you have to ask yourself, do people have the same opportunity to expand and to grow and to achieve things here? A lot of times, what happens is once somebody is brought into the environment, brought into the door, they may not automatically be given opportunity. They may have to jump through more hoops, do more things to get on somebody's radar. So it's important that from day one, the organization has things in place to help mentor, to help ensure that people are getting the same opportunities regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of a situation. So meritocracy is important, but sometimes if you're never given opportunity to work on a big project, then you never have big project experience. So you may not be viewed as somebody who can handle big projects. And the old argument is the same. Somebody may say, I never had big project experience because nobody will give me the opportunity. And people say I can't do it because I haven't had the experience. So how do I get that experience unless I have somebody, a mentor, somebody who can vouch for me and who can say, you know what, I work with this guy, I've mentored him, give him a chance. So a lot of times meritocracy isn't the only way. You have to look at, do we really have an equitable environment here where people are given opportunity to prove themselves, not necessarily having the past record of having that experience.
Yeah, that's a catch-22, right? They're
That's me too.
asking you to have this experience, but you have not been given the opportunities to display
Hmm.
or to make use of those skills or competencies. Now, I'm just thinking probably there the one reason that we don't have that many women leaders also in the workplace is because most of the people in the top are males. So you've mentioned about mentorship, and probably I can also say sponsorship, right? Someone who would get a positive word or two for you when
Right.
when he is networking within the workplace. So how can we promote sponsorship between men leaders and then female junior executives?
Right. So I want to clarify. Most of the people in the boardrooms are white males. Are white males. I want to specify that. I think one of the things that we've seen over the years that, especially for women, that's really been a powerful um, tool for them to get opportunity has been the affinity groups and sponsorship groups in organizations. For example, you may have in a large organization, you may have a woman's network. You may have a woman's, these are different groups that are formed to support women to help them get noticed. And these groups are free to support women in the organization. They may help them feel empowered. They may help them get noticed, but the whole goal there is to have a support network in the organization for helping women get more opportunities. And you're now seeing those same groups for LBGT as well. So having these affinity groups that are set up and not run by management, they're run by themselves, but they're set up to help those people who have feel marginalized or have not had some opportunity to get more opportunity to get noticed. So that's been a tremendous, powerful tool for organizations to use to help women, people of color, uh, 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 people based on their sexual orientation to really get noticed and to have a voice when it comes to saying, "Hey, as a collective, we've noticed that the board or middle management is made up of, let's say, 75% men. We feel collectively that's a problem. What are you going to do about it?" And that's when organizations start to notice and start to make change. So these affinity groups that come together and support and build support networks, that's really one of the first steps to helping people get more opportunity within an organization.
Okay, so you're not talking about support groups. Shall we call them? There's this one where that's gaining ground, allies.
Well, yes. Well, I think I would say these support groups are more groups because they're more structured. But they are allies. They're serving as allies. When I think about allies, I'm thinking about individuals that look to help a movement. They see something that's wrong. They're not a part of that offender group, but they know something's wrong and they try to help. For example, this past few years, we've had a lot of discrimination and racial issues coming
Mm,
out of the U.S. And the beautiful thing is, when you saw some of the global protests, you did not just see people of color protesting. You saw people of all colors protesting. And what happened was a lot of people, when they visually saw proof of what's going on, they said, you know what? I can't turn my back anymore. Now I must really do what I can to help. So when I think of allies, people who say, you know what? I may be part of the majority. I may be part of the group of people who are doing some bad things, make some bad decisions. However, I want to help. How can I help? So when I think of allies, I think about people who are not part of your particular group that come in and really want to help your group and want to improve, or I say, want to help your group not be treated so poorly.
mhm. Thank you for that. And how can we promote more allyship in the workplace?
I think in allyship in the workplace, I think it's really it goes back to people who don't have personal relationships in the workplace. Because if I want to be your ally, it means I I know that you are being treated or discriminated against. I know you're not being treated the right way. I want to help you, or I want to bring that issue up, right? So one of the first things that has to take place is I have to have a reason to help you. If we work in the same environment, in the same team, we don't have a relationship, I might not take action. I might not feel the personal pull. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to stop saying to ourselves, you know what, the work environment is the wrong place to talk about race discrimination. Don't talk about it at work. And that is so not true. You must talk about these things the right way at work, okay? And I don't mean management down. I mean with your peers, You have to have a conversation because in order for us to really get to know each other, we must be more personal. In order for us to really pull out the best of each other in the workplace, we must be more personal. We must have trust. I must have trust to share my ideas, and don't think that, well, if you view my background or something about me poorly, you won't take my ideas seriously. I must have a trust to know that I can voice my ideas, and even if they're stupid, you're not going to have that a reflection of me. So once we're able to form a personal relationship in the workplace and have trust, then people say, you know what, I don't agree with this. I'll tell you what happens here. You know, when you go out sometimes, and well, not you, Jennifer. So when people go out sometimes and they see somebody in a store being treated the wrong way, they may just look and walk by. Now, of course, they're not pull out the phone, but they may not take action. But if you have a personal relationship with somebody and you see the same thing, you may say, you know what, I'm going to take action because I know somebody who have been through this. So that's when you take action. That's when you become an ally. When you go from seeing something that's wrong to actually saying, you know what, I know somebody who's been through this. I feel I need to take action now. And that's really what must take place to become allies in and outside the workforce. You must develop a personal relationship so somebody can share their experience. They can tell you a story of where they've been discriminated against, or tell you a story of where there was a promotion and they were qualified for it, but didn't get it based on a non-merit-based decision. So you have to have that relationship with somebody who can say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk, and put my hand up and be an ally.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you mentioned about being profiled for promotion, but it did not push through because of another reason, right? I wonder if you personally have, at present or in the past, experienced discrimination in the workplace.
So I think that most people of color working in the United States have experienced discrimination in the workplace. So I smile when you ask that question because my answer is, of course I have. Of course I have. Um, but now, yes, I have. However, you have to ask yourself at the time, is this something that you want to address? Because if you do address this, you have to have a management system in place that will support you sort of being a whistleblower or support you shaking things up. Now, my experience, usually I am one of two people of color, or one of two black people in the workplace, surrounded by, majority Caucasian, majority white. So you have to be very careful when you do bring these issues up. It's my assumption, if it's for promotion, it's my assumption I was passed over because of discrimination. There's no facts there, right? Or if somebody is, creating an uncomfortable work environment by saying things like, Colin, a lot of times people say, Colin, you're black. You're Michael Jackson black. I mean, you're Michael Jordan black. You're not black. Like, you're not black with other blacks. You're the other black. And you're like, what is that, right? So there's been several situations in the workplace, but I think being a person of color and for women also, you have to have thick skin. I mean, I know I've seen situations where women have been put in very uncomfortable situations at work. They may say, if you have the only woman in the room, they may say things like, "Oh, I see you trying to make a quota here," right? They may say things that don't make the woman feel comfortable. They may address the women, hey guys, we're doing A, B, and C. Hey guys, not taking the fact that you have women in the room. So I think that people have to have tough skin and have to know how and when to report these acts. But it's important that these acts are reported, but you got to make sure you're in the right environment and you know how to. So yes, I have been discriminated against in the work environment, outside the work environment, and I'm glad to say that now in 2021, people are more not acting up. People are more reporting these collectively. People are saying, you know, we're not going to accept this, and people are really having the confidence to, I won't say fight back, but to react in a positive way, right? And let people know that your behavior is not acceptable any longer.
Yeah, that behavior is not acceptable. Now, when we think of discrimination, we think of really overt or big actions. So you mentioned about if there's a woman in the room, sometimes we can say some remarks that makes that woman uncomfortable. So we can probably call them microaggressions.
Microaggressions, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So can we touch a little something on that?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So I think one of the common microaggressions now, and microaggressions are little bitty comments that people have that they may not know is inappropriate. They may think that they're actually supporting you, but the comments are again out of line for the environment. And one is, I don't see you as a person of color, and I've heard that many times. Or I don't see color, or I don't see you as a person of color. I see you just as a person. And there's two sides to this, and it's important that people understand that the hidden message or bias there, right? When somebody says that, what they're saying is racism is not an issue for me. What it does though, it deflects or dismisses the impact of color. It makes color seem like a bad thing, right? So if I don't see you as a person of color, well, perhaps it's saying that you're not part of that, assuming people wouldn't want to be associated with a person of color. Does that make sense? Right? If I don't see you as being black, Colin, right? Which means that you may have a negative view on being black, right? So yeah, see me as being black because I am black, right? Just don't see black as a negative thing. So that's one of the little microaggressions. Now, it's important to note that the person saying this might be coming from a good place. They might be trying to create a connection, or reassure, or they may be trying to assure that there's no issue personal towards them, and giving internal confirmation that there is no issue. So they may have good intent. They may think they're saying something positive, but again, it's a mini microaggression that it's very hard to predict how that will be received. And a lot of times that comment, which is very common now, is not received the right way. Okay, I want you to see me as a person of color.
Yeah. So it's something like dismissing the issues that are being faced by people of color.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm colorblind, right? I'm colorblind. And, don't be colorblind, right? See color. Try to understand what it means to be a person of color, right? And I want you to see each race differently, right? Don't just see people. I want you to see Asians. I want you to see blacks. I want you to see Hispanics. See us differently and see us positively, right? So don't be colorblind.
All right. So we'll go for a short break. And then we will continue about subconscious bias when we come back. All right? Direct. TNC is a live stream platform of online shows for people on the go. We are inviting you to watch all our shows as seen on the screen. We aim to transform the lives of our viewers through engaging, authentic, and original content. Our mission is to become a community where passionate people accept each other, share inspiration, and promote positive transformation. Our vision is to be a global 24/7 live stream channel that showcases Filipino talent, ingenuity, and cultural intelligence. Of course, please remember to continue watching Stories from the Fringe on TNC channel. We are live every Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. You can always go back to our replays on the new channel if you miss any of the episodes. If you would like to have your own show or you would like to sponsor my show, please contact our channel through private message. Of course, we have more upcoming shows. Follow hashtag TNC now on Facebook, YouTube, and other social media platforms. Enjoy, enjoy our life-changing shows because we made them just for you. Thank you Cholita Esplana for watching. Also, thank you Emerson de Gracias from England. Thank you for the constant support, Ian Octa, also Adele Abogado. And we will also expect you in the upcoming shows. Thank you for the support. All right, so can we now bring back Colin?
Hello, Jennifer.
Hi. So before we went on a break, we were talking about avoiding the discussion of race when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and equity. So how does sexuality also come into play when it comes to DEI?
Well, I think that sexuality, whether it be how one person uh, 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 whether having somebody what sexual orientation they associate themselves with, whether they call themselves he, she. There are now LGBT. There are now several different categories within that group, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people have biases or certain views on people in certain groups. The most classic one, right, was how men feel about women in a professional work environment, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
men feel that women belong there, and in some cases, how women feel about men in some environments also. It goes both ways, right? Now, typically, we see it more because men are more dominant and they tend to be in more positions of power, so they have the power to hold people down and be more discriminatory. When it comes when it comes now to people who um, 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 may be gay, or who may view themselves as being uh, I forgot the proper terminology, but they may view themselves as not being so binary. I'm not just a man. I could be a woman inside a man's body. So you have to, I think they called it um, I forgot the term.
Is that
Uh,
intersex?
well, that's one of the categories. But they have I see it a lot in sports when they say they have and I apologize,
Transgenders?
transgender. Thank you, transgender, where your gender on the outside may not be what you're feeling on the inside. Now,
Mm-hmm.
luckily, these groups have been getting a lot of support, so you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a bigger movement on those groups being supported across the board. Now, what we're not seeing though is how they're really being supported in a work environment. We're just seeing the PR side outwardly. So even in a work environment, it's important that they have the support structure in place and they don't fall into the categories of being biased against. Now, there's so much bias going on in the workplace that it's crippling sometimes. But again, having those support groups we talked about, they help to call out that discrimination in the workplace and really help those individuals be supported, be included, and hopefully helping the management system change how it's supporting these different groups.
Mm-hmm. I recall there was this time in the Philippines when I was still in the corporate when we were debating, are we going to have now mixed bathrooms if we are really to be inclusive? Was that also an issue in China?
Well, not in China.
Mm-hmm.
In China, that's not an issue in China because I think China is still a little. People are still more private on certain things, like the sexual orientation. It's not so much public. That's more due to the lack of government support for those groups. But you do see China on paper being more inclusive. But if I think about the U.S. or outside of China, I'm not sure having a mixed gender bathroom is the answer. I've been places where you have mixed gender bathrooms, and I don't, that doesn't bring change into the environment. I think what it's more is perhaps having an environment or a bathroom that is for transgender. Because if you think
Mm-hmm.
about mixed bathrooms or locker rooms, you may have children in there, and
Mm-hmm.
children may be exposed to seeing things that they're not ready to see. So how
Mm-hmm.
you go about doing it has to be, it has to be really thought out on how it's put into play. But I think that having a mixed bathroom now that might be viewed as a step in the right direction, but that
Mm-hmm.
should just be one activity. And of course, you have to have those requirements in place for what that means to have a mixed gender bathroom in the environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so before we went on a break, we said that we're going to discuss about unconscious bias. So how is unconscious bias also demonstrated in the workplace?
Yeah. So just so you understand, unconscious biases are inherent or learned stereotypes about people that everyone forms without actually realizing it. That's why it's unconscious. It's just the way we think sometimes. And there are several different types of unconscious bias. There's gender bias, of course, we talked about that. There's age bias, we talked about that. There is beauty bias, which we know is big. People always assume people who look better are smarter. People who look
Yes, I
better
read the research about that. Yes.
your opportunity. And in the workplace, there's also a big one is affinity bias. And affinity bias we also see in recruiting. So affinity bias is where you assume people who share your background are more qualified or have more positive traits. For example, we see that recruiters tend to recruit who? Recruiters tend to recruit people who went to their same university. When managers are going through resumes, they tend to put more positive attributes on the resumes where people went to their same university or from their same state. That's a fact. So we want to make sure that in a work environment that we've learned how to try to take the power away from these biases. And I'll share with you a story that took place back in the 1950s and then was redone in the 1990s and was found still to be true. And this is one of the, I call this, put this in the horns bias, where you're putting negative attributes on on things you see that don't fall in line with what you think is positive. So back in the 50s, they took a number of resumes and they had management go through the resumes and rank the resumes as far as the ones that they felt were good candidates for management positions. And what they did, they put names on the resumes. Some names were more attributed to more Caucasians, Mike Smith, Tom Jones. Other resumes had names that were more rich, names that sounded more like people of color. Maybe Jermaine, um, Aisha, names like that. And what they found across the board was the resumes that had the more names associated with people of color all ranked toward the bottom. Now, they also had another batch of resumes with no names. And when they had no names on them, there was more equity, right, and how those resumes were stacked up for management positions. So it showed that based on a name, that may put you in a lower position for opportunity. Now, that was the 50s. They did the same exact thing in the 90s, and the same exact results came out. And one person said, well, Colin, if you have a manager who is in his 50s and he's white, and he sees a resume and the name is Shakanda, he's not going to know how to say the name. And he's going to say, you know what? I don't know how to say this name. I don't want to say this name every day, and put it in the no-go stack. And to me, that is discrimination 101, right? So looking at how can organizations avoid these biases, it has to start by being aware of them. So part of what I do is train organizations and employees on how to be aware of your unconscious bias. Because if you're aware of it, you have more power to do what? More power to stop it. But you first must be aware. And I think using the name example on the resume case, people say, now I get it. Because sometimes they've done it also when hearing somebody's name.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you share that, because I also saw there's this one story from a female. She's working with suppliers, and she's a female. What she it was unintentional. I think she was locked out of her own email using her own name, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So she used one time the email of a male colleague, and the reception of the email using that male colleague's email address was vastly different from the responses that she got when she was using her own email.
Absolutely.
So I guess from what you have shared from 1950s up to our time, not much has changed, and there's still a lot to be done in the space of DE&I.
Yeah, and let me say this: a lot more is being done now. Sometimes it takes absolute bad behavior to cause a change and build a movement. And what took place with George Floyd in the U.S. a number of years ago, and Ahmaud Arbery, and in those 6 months, there were just so many cases on video of some police having bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That really caused a powerful movement that is still going, because now people say, first of all, there are more allies involved now, and more people are saying, no, this must stop. And with that, more people are saying, you know what, I'm sorry, this happened to me. And the most powerful tool people have now, and I hate to say this because I'm not a fan of it, but Twitter, Instagram, social media, because now people are going to social media to show people what's taking place. And if you have a major multinational organization, and even a low-level employee is saying, I was discriminated against at work, and here's my proof, they're going to take action. So a lot more organizations now are making sure that they're prepared to, one, be supportive of those who are being discriminated against, and two, do things to change the environment to be more diverse, more equitable, and inclusive. And I am seeing a change in organizations who are doing that more. And I'll tell you, Jennifer, not just organizations. I'm seeing a lot more people. I've had several more clients over the last 2 years who are coming to me to help them be more culturally accepting, to understand different cultures, and to really be able to form relationships with people who are different from them. Because if you've only been raised in a certain environment, it's hard to have the courage to step out and try to build relationships with people who don't look like you, don't talk like you, and don't think like you. And sometimes you need coaching on how to do that. So I've been very fortunate over the last few years to not just on the corporate side where I educate employees on DE&I and how to build a more inclusive and trusting environment, but individuals on how to be more culturally aware, how to be aware of what you're doing and what you're saying in your actions, how that may make people feel a certain way. And more importantly, how they can build relationships with people that don't look, think, and sound like them.
Now, can we give little steps on how to go from having unconscious bias to being fully aware of our bias to becoming a role model of DE&I?
Yeah. I think, well, I think at an individual basis, I think that people just really need to use the simple tools they have, right? Go online, Google, Bing, whatever search engine you use, and just type in unconscious bias, subconscious bias. Look what pops up. You will have so many different examples. And the reason I say do it yourself is because you have to take action individually before you can even expect to see organizational change. As an individual, you must first change, right? You must reflect what you want to happen and understand those areas and just have that in your mind. And what you'll find is if you say to yourself, I'm aware of 4 or 5 different types of unconscious bias. As you're going through your day, whether it be socially or professionally, you'll start to see things and say, hey, that's affinity bias. That's halo bias. You'll start to see it. So when you start to see it, don't do anything yet. Just be aware of seeing it. And then after you're able to have it come naturally where you're seeing it, then start acting a little different. And in some cases, you may want to confront what you're seeing. You may want to say, hey, you know what? You're biased there, right? You may talk about it. When you talk about it, it forces you and other individuals to what? Communicate and have a conversation about it. So that's the first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do is when you want to really start defending others or being ally, ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to become an ally? And that's important because when you approach somebody who doesn't look like you or is older than you or younger than you or a different gender than you, and you tell them, I noticed things, you're being treated a certain way, I want to help. They're going to want to understand why. And you don't have to tell them why, because they can tell by your actions whether you're doing it for the positive reasons or you're doing it for more self-serving reasons. But you want to make sure you understand why. Because if you do try to make that connection and it's for self-serving reasons, that will come to surface. And what happens is the person who sees that, they then become less likely to accept people like you again. So you want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and understand that the first few conversations with somebody might be difficult because they may not trust you, and they may think people like you are part of the reason they're being discriminated against. So they may not be as open initially. But if you have a powerful why, and if you're consistent, they will see that you do want to be an ally, and at some point they will welcome you in and start having what I call deep personal conversations with you.
That's awesome. That brings to my mind my big why I am doing all the things that I'm doing. Aside from this stories from the Fringe, which I created to move D&IB conversations from the Fringe to the front and center of conversations. I am also with amazing creators all over the globe. We are creating this diversity board game similar to Monopoly or Trivial Pursuits, which we hope when it's refined, polished, we'll be able to work with youth organizations and schools, learning institutions to have it hopefully embedded in the curriculum, because I personally believe that we need to have diversity inclusion. These conversations start this with the young leaders.
Yeah.
Because we want to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable world, not only for the present time, but for the future. Now, my massive transformative purpose for doing everything that I'm doing right now is to co-create the human collective experience. Because I believe that one less person, okay, one less race, one less gender identity from that full spectrum that we have, we will be incomplete, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine the world without Asians, without Hispanics, without blacks, right? It will be
Right.
less colorful. It will be less lively.
I totally agree with you there, especially if we knew if they existed, right? Yeah, I definitely believe that the world without this wonderful diversity would be a different world.
Mhm. And not only about diversity, we have to emphasize inclusiveness and equity,
Yes,
right?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the world is being, it's luckily, the world is now being much more inclusive. We have a long way to go, a long, long way to go. But I think people are, I think the movement is active and we're seeing more momentum.
Mhm. Now, of course, I live in the Philippines and I'm not directly affected by the Asian hate that was happening in the US. But
Mhm.
I feel that we should speak out more, even if we're not directly affected, but we're witnessing it because
Right.
injustice in one place, right, is injustice everywhere. So who knows? What if, for example, you will come also to another place for work or for business study and something like that happens to you, you would also want to have people supporting you.
You see, and this is a very good thing because this is what we talk about being an ally. If we just think back a little bit, when African Americans, the black people in the U.S. were getting discriminated against, hate crimes, nobody really, tried to ally with us. Nobody really said, this is wrong. Stop, stop, stop it. However, Asian Americans or Asian people having hate crimes, everybody said, hey, stop it. And even black folks said, you know what, we're going to be your ally. As opposed to saying, well, look, Asians, when we were in trouble, you did nothing. So this is your
Mhm,
fight. This is your fight.
mhm,
That did not take place. And I think that's because black people understood what it felt like to be on the other side of a hate crime, to be on the other side of being discriminated against. And because of that, we could feel the pain and want to make sure that we put our hand up and said, Asian Americans, Asians, we have your back, right? We're
yeah.
supporting you also because we have that common history of being discriminated against.
Yeah, there's a poem regarding that. I just can't recall the exact words, but it says, when they went for the Jews, I did not speak. When they went for the communists, I did not speak. When they went for the Christians, I did not speak. And when they came for me, no one spoke. So
Mm,
what
wow.
goes around comes around,
Wow.
right? So if we don't
Yeah.
speak about any injustice right now, then it will just continue.
Right. And that's why we have to have allies.
Mhm. That's wonderful. All right. So it's so sad that we are nearing the bottom of the hour. All right. So just one last question. What is the one thing that you would like to create in the next 12 months?
Great question. What I would like to create in the next 12 months is um, I'd like to be able to say that I've coached individuals from being colorblind to
Mm-hmm.
seeing color, embracing color, and being more culturally aware of other people's experiences and wanting to deep dive into their experiences. One of the benefits of being here in Shanghai, China, is that my social circle are full of Germans, French, Africans from different countries in Africa, South America. It's very, very diverse, and that's helped me really know how to help coach my clients in embracing new cultures. A lot of times people come to China and not know what they're getting into, and they need support in how to really embrace the Chinese culture, embrace other cultures who are now in their professional and social environments as well. So a year from now, I want to be able to say that I've helped individuals really embrace different cultures and really have a more diverse, rich, and colorful social circle.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful. One of the required skills for new leaders in this digital age is cross cultural
Yes,
sensitivity and cross cultural agility.
yes, yes. And
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
what? And new leaders are understanding the need for that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, how can our viewers continue the conversation with you? How can they connect with you through social media?
Well, it's interesting. I always say that you cannot connect with me through social media. You can find me, reach out to me, but to connect with me, we have to have a conversation. And
Ah,
in that conversation, you must be willing to trust me, trust you, and share. Right? That's how we connect. Right? Let's have a
yes.
conversation. Help me understand what you're trying to achieve, and we'll talk about how to get you there. And we can connect very easy. There are several different ways to contact me. I think you'll see it here on the screen. If you go to oligye.com, that's OLIGYE.com. You can find different ways to contact me, more about the work I'm doing to help build a more diverse workforce and to help people have more diverse social circles. And one thing I want to add, because I'm a big proponent of helping organizations to develop more trust. Right now, I have a free giveaway for individuals, leaders, managers, and individuals socially on how to rebuild trust in the workforce. Right now, Jennifer, there's not a lot of trust in the workforce. That's the bottom line.
How
Employees,
unfortunate.
yeah, how unfortunate. Employees don't feel safe in the workforce. So I have 5 tips on how to rebuild trust in the workplace, and you can find that at oligye.com/5 tips form.
Mhm.
/5 tips form. And on my website, you can also navigate to that as well. But that helps organizations and individuals identify how can we rebuild trust in the workplace.
Mhm. Wonderful, wonderful. But just can you give us at least small steps on how we can build trust in the workplace
Okay, I'll share
before we
one.
close?
Yeah, I'll share one.
Just
I'll
a
share
quick
one.
rundown.
Yeah. So one way to rebuild trust in the workplace is you have to walk the talk. As a leader, as an individual, you have to be the example. You have to be trustworthy. You have to really make sure that you are somebody who employees can talk to, and knowing that you will not retaliate against them if they're sharing things with you. So you have to you have to embody the trust that you want other employees to have. That's one tip. That's really, again, being authentic. If you have a manager who will throw you under the bus or claims credit for your work, that's not trustworthy. So you must first be trustworthy. In order to get trust, you must first give trust. And I like to say this: you can't do trust. You must be trustworthy, right? You must
Yes.
be trustworthy first. So don't think I can trust something I can do. No, you must be trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't come with a business title. You have to trust me because I am such and such, and then
Correct.
lock the title.
Correct.
All right, so viewers, if you want to know more about the 4 other tips on how to build trust in the workplace, you have to visit Colin's website. And then also, he offers complimentary coaching sessions.
Hmm. Absolutely. And again, you can find out how to sign up for those as well. I love to sit down with your audience one-on-one for 45 minutes and talk about how I can help them go from where they are now to achieving their goals.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Thank you, Colleen. It has been an amazing 1 hour with you. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers also learned a lot. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah,
More
thank,
power to you and your business, your coaching.
yeah, thank you for having me on your show on the Fringe. Thank you.
Mhm. My pleasure. All right. Let's reconnect soon. Dear viewers, if you found value in today's session, please let us know in the comment section. Please rate us 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest. And also, we would love to know what you found most valuable in today's episode. And if you haven't told your colleagues, your friends, or your loved ones, please tell them to also support Stories from the Fridge. We are live every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. And with that, I wish you a good rest of your day or evening, depending where you are in the world. God bless everyone.